Huskers.
Gets a jet sweep toss from left to right, angles to the outside 5, revs the engine, turns the corner, touchdown Huskers!
Nebraska wins its 5th national championship.
Giving you an inside look at everything going on in Husker Nation. This is the KLIN Husker Hour.
Kicks and deals the 2-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Strike 3. Jackson Brockett has the first 9-inning no-hitter for the Nebraska Cornhuskers since 1954, and he did it on his 12th strikeout.
Doxer got it! Underdog and one! Exclamation point! Pump the brakes!
Now your hosts, KLIN contributor Cole Stukenholtz and sports director Nate Rohr.
Good Saturday morning. Welcome to another edition of the KLIN Husker Hour. We made it. Tomorrow is Selection Sunday, people. Batten down the hatches.
Uh-oh.
Tell your loved ones how you feel, because by the time we come back to you next weekend, we're going to be changed. One way or another.
Oh, yes.
Things will never be the same again. Thank you for joining us here on KLIN Husker Hour. I'm Cole Stukenholtz. That is Nate Rohr. We are back in studio 2 weeks in a row.
How about that?
Kenny Larrabee's got us up on the StreamYard. If you want to check that out, we're on the KLIN YouTube, Facebook, Twitter pages, the Husker Hour Facebook page as well for the live video stream. Matt McMaster from 1620 The Zone is live from Chicago. Ooh. He's going to join us. Of course, he is a Chicago man through and through, so he's out there for the Big Ten tournament. Nebraska's stay a little bit shorter than they probably would have liked, but we forge ahead nonetheless. We'll also chat about some baseball, softball, football, reset where the women are, looking ahead to their Selection Sunday and what their chances are of hearing their name called for the big bracket. Nate, it is always good to see you in studio.
Hello.
And I'm not sure how I want to start with the Nebraska men, because the season, as KP would say, the season of seasons.
Yes.
Has the resume is set. Everybody knows it's now down to where they get slotted in the bracket. And it's a little bit bittersweet because the Big Ten tournament didn't really go as well as everybody would have hoped. You wanted to at least acquit yourself well in that one game if you did go down. They are still probably going to be at 3 seed. They're still probably going to be going, I think, someplace close, probably Oklahoma City. All that being said, it's now or never. Like, there's no more, okay, well, this is why they lost this game. This is a bad matchup. They just didn't start fast enough. There's no more safety net. There's no more parachute. You are either winning the thing finally on Thursday or Friday, or this whole season. Failure is a really strong word considering all of the records they've broken. There's an optimistic case to be made for this team winning, and maybe even winning a couple next weekend. And then there is also the sky is falling case to be made as well. And I don't know that either of us are on hard on one side or the other, but I know everybody's kind of be going through those feelings for the next 5 days.
Yeah, and there's, I think, a growing worry because this team ended the year bumpy. I mean, they start 20-0, and everybody, everything, winning is the best deodorant. So, you didn't lose for 20 games. There was nothing wrong with your team. Now, in actuality, there were things wrong with your team. It just got covered up because you won. And so the deficiencies that this team have come into a little sharper relief in the last few weeks. And, I think Purdue, hey, you're right in saying that implying, I think, that the Purdue matchup was a bad matchup. Right. I mean, they're great up front. They have a high level of execution. It really was the worst of all worlds. Plus, they've seen them before.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the thing that benefits Nebraska the most, is they get in to the NCAA tournament where where these teams are just slapping together their prep on 3 days notice or less, so dealing with Nate Lenzer's defense is a much more difficult proposition, and dealing with Fred Hoiberg's complex offense is a tougher issue. So you're hopeful that they can get over that hump and get into this tournament and do some damage, because assessing this year, if they lose in the first round, will be really tough, because then the idea of great start but got exposed creeps in. And that would be really disappointing. I think this team deserves a better fate than that. But look, it's an albatross on this athletic department's back. It's an 800-pound gorilla that Nebraska has never won a game in the men's basketball tournament. It's a blight on this athletic department. And that's not to say, especially the guys that are currently in there, need a black mark on them or anything like that. But it's really bad that Nebraska has never won a men's basketball tournament game. And for so much of this year, this team operated without pressure. There were no expectations on this team. They were 14th. They were picked 14th in the Big Ten to start the year. But as expectations have come in, and there are other circumstances too, it's not like they looked at themselves and went 20-0 and, oh geez, people now expect things from us. The road got tougher for them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's also felt like they've not handled the pressure of the situation of the moment as well as you might like, and that's exacerbated some of the other weaknesses and some of the other holes that they have. So you're hopeful getting into the NCAA tournament, facing teams that maybe aren't quite as attuned to them and haven't had as long to prepare for them, bodes well and puts them in a little better position to take advantage of who they are and what they can do, because there's pressure right now. There is absolute pressure. I talked about this team maybe not being able to take in the pressure of the good start well, but now there's real pressure. There are expectations. There are demands, and they've got to meet them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And with the way that the season ended, and unless we forget, I mean, they just had the Iowa game on Sunday, and they faced pressure there,
sure,
right, and did well to finish strong, even though there was a little bit of a shaky ending, similar to the way the season goes, and maybe that's the way that this season will look when it's all said and done. You had that 3-pointer at the buzzer to make you say, oh crap, what's going to happen next? Is this all going to fall apart after it was looking so good? And then, why were you worrying at all? Cale Jacobson's got this. You guys are going to be just fine. And then you end up blowing them out in overtime. And maybe that's what happened. Maybe Nebraska still ends up in the Sweet 16 and all is well and hunky-dory. But right now, there is still the tendency in this fan base to look around the corner for the monster.
Oh, yeah.
Where's that other shoe dropping, right? And so that is going to be discussed and rehashed, out loud and in everybody's mind as well. And there's certainly a case to be made that there are reasons why you should feel a little bit hesitant, why you should not go all in with your heart right this very minute. But there are also, on the other side of the coin, I mean, you have certainly seen when the matchup is better, when the teams are not as good, Nebraska has been able to succeed. They did not have a bad loss all year. The only teams that beat them were really good teams,
right?
And sometimes in their own venue. Iowa and UCLA are the if you want to say worse, I mean, they're both tournament teams, but those are the worst teams that beat Nebraska.
Yeah.
And they had to have the 2-hour time difference, and they can't play in the Central or Eastern time zone. They can only play on the Pacific Coast. Or you had to have an all-time offensive stinker and a crowd that was out for blood against one of your players.
Yeah.
Those were the circumstances that kind of led to those two losses. And if you look ahead at what Nebraska is going to be facing when this bracket comes out, These are the teams that are projected to be around that 14 line. North Dakota State, they're in the same conference as UNO. Troy, Wright State, Tennessee State, Furman, UC Irvine, Hofstra. Like these are the types of teams that Nebraska saw in the non-conference. These are the types of teams that would struggle to beat the worst team of the Big Ten.
Right.
It doesn't mean that it's an automatic W by any means, but this is the type of competition. You have to remind yourself, this is the type of competition that Nebraska is going to be facing. This is what the fact that you have this resume that you built all this year. You started 20-0. You have a school record 26 wins. You have all of this stacked in your favor. Now you get to reap the reward when the bracket comes out, because you are going to be on that 3 line almost certainly. And then that means you get rewarded with the team way, way down the line. You're not playing Texas A&M 2 years ago.
No,
that is, a battle-tested SEC team with a huge front line and an offensive rebounding prowess. You might face a team that's good at offensive rebounding. I haven't dug into any of the strengths and weaknesses of these potential 14s yet, but we will obviously have time for that after the bracket comes out. I just think the main thing that I'm never going to tell people how to fan, but don't worry about, okay, this player has done this for this many games in a row, or this player doesn't do this well unless this condition exists, or he only plays good at right now. Think about Nebraska's head coach. It's Fred Hoiberg.
Yeah.
He's been in the tournament before. He's had success in the tournament before, and he has had success in building this roster. He's put it together, and they are together, maybe more together than any other top team. Think about the assistants in this staff. I mean, Nate Lenzer has done amazing things with the defense. You've talked about how, it's tough to prepare for it, right? And Big Ten teams have had that advantage built in because they've seen it and they know it and they've scouted against it all season. You're not going to have that scenario with whatever team they draw on Thursday or Friday. They're just not going to know it as well. And the other guys who don't have the Nate Lenzer, the immediate knowledge of his name and what he does on the staff, Ernie Ziegler and Adam Howard do well too.
Right. Yeah. And
then the roster, the players on this, Rink Massen's versatility, his leadership, Sam Hoiberg doing everything on the floor all at the same time, seemingly. Price Sandfort's lights out shooting, Jamarcus Lawrence's lightning quick speed on the break, Cale Jacobson's smooth calmness. All of it mixes in. Jared Garcia saying it's Jared Garcia time. All of it mixes together. And Bearkay is kind of the X factor. You never know quite what you're going to get from him, but all of these guys have come together to put this season together, and it's been the most incredible season that anybody could have dreamed of. And it's not over.
Right.
It's in a way just getting started, because every time Nebraska's season starts, this is the thing everybody thinks of finally doing.
Yes.
And now you've gotten to the point where all of the hard work is done. Fred said it after the Iowa game. All the hard work you put in the offseason, our strength and conditioning coach is kicking your ass. This is the fun time of year. Get excited. All right. This is all of the hard work that you as a fan have done. All that's over. All right. If you're going to OKC, if you're staying home and partying at a bar or having people over at home, hoping for that 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock tip off so you don't have to miss work, this is the time. Don't let it get you down that Nebraska lost that game to Purdue the way they did yesterday. This is the time. Enjoy it, embrace it, because come 5 days from now, I think we're going to be living in a very different world, and I think it's a world we're all going to want to live in.
I sure hope so. And look, if I had to call it one way or another, not knowing the matchup, not knowing who Nebraska is going to play, when, where, anything like that, yeah, I feel like Nebraska is going to have done something that it has never done in its school history, and that's going to be a lot of fun. I am a little the undertone of "oh geez, here we go" is too loud in my head right now.
Yeah, totally understandable. I am. Oh, yeah. I'm right there with you in terms of just gosh, you wish you would have been able to play a little bit better, even if you're going down in a loss. But that's look, you can look through all kinds of scenarios in championship week, teams going one and done and then making a long run in the NCAA. Like it happens all the time. It does not preclude Nebraska from having a lot of success wherever they end up next weekend. All right, we are going to show you a little bit more about where they could land. The last NCAA tournament update from us, and then we will get to Matt McMaster, who is out in Chicago. We'll get a live report from him on site where Nebraska is already out of the Big Ten tournament, but we'll get a report from what he saw, and we will talk a little football with Matt. We'll get into a little spring ball. They're on spring break now as they're going to get into game week a couple weeks from now. So we've got plenty to talk about. We've got more to come. That's Nate Rohr. I'm Cole Stukenholtz. Stick with us here on the KLIN Husker Hour.
Husker football, basketball, baseball, and beyond. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on 1499.3 KLIN.
All right, well, tomorrow's the day we've all been waiting for. It's Selection Sunday. There's 11 championships to be handed out, 11 11 more tickets today on
Yes.
the little dance, if you will, and then about 5 or 6 more tomorrow. So with all that being said, let's do this one last time. We made it to the point where it is not just the bit on the Husker Hour, or as other loyal KLIN listeners would note, Munch Madness.
Oh yes, which is going on right now.
Absolutely. But no, we're going to see the actual show. We're going to see the reveal of the bracket. We're going to know where Nebraska has gone. And obviously there are 8 sites that cover the first and second rounds. I detailed this in a piece on Husker Max. I think it was January actually, but that I think held up pretty well. I think all 16 of those teams were in that top 30 at that very moment. But this is the possibilities. This is where Nebraska could end up. And again, you're going to start at the top with the seed line, and so Michigan and UConn, they're out east. Arizona's obviously out west, and so where it shakes out, as we all know, is who's in the Midwest, who's going to St. Louis, and then what about Oklahoma City? So Houston's a 2. They're probably Oklahoma City. Iowa State and Illinois, both ahead of Nebraska. They're probably going to St. Louis. Purdue, probably Buffalo. And then Michigan State, perhaps also to Buffalo, especially if Michigan goes to Philadelphia. The tricky part, if you want to look a little bit pessimistically at this thing, Nebraska on and just in terms of where bracket matrix is at, this is as of yesterday. Nebraska is the second 3 seed. Gonzaga behind them. Gonzaga won the West Coast Conference. This is already, I think, baked in, but Nebraska is now maybe sliding behind Gonzaga. Purdue was also behind them, but Purdue really struggled down the stretch. Maybe Purdue wins again today against UCLA and further increases their resume. I don't know if there's going to be that much movement. Alabama, not going to pass Nebraska. They had a very embarrassing loss in the SEC tournament. Virginia, they're still in it. They're facing Duke in the ACC title game tonight. Kansas got destroyed yesterday. They're not passing Nebraska. And Vanderbilt's still alive in the SEC tournament. Those are the 4 seeds, according to Bracket Matrix. Kansas, they're not a threat anymore. They've lost. They can't improve their resume any further. Alabama's almost certainly going to go down to Tampa to join Florida down there. Virginia probably going to go to Greenville with Duke. I don't see a scenario, Nate. Maybe you see things differently. Maybe you want to take a little bit more pessimistic look at it, just so people don't book their travel plans on our advice. But I think Nebraska's a 3 seed, and I think they're going to Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most likely scenario. They seem to fit there. I'm a little worried about the idea that Nebraska's bad finish might play into this a little bit, or I say bad finish, that exaggerates it. Nebraska's less than optimal finish. Let's put it that way. And you feel like even the one thing you said though is Purdue is in this mix too.
Yeah.
And they've got to find a place for them. You're hopeful it's St. Louis. You're hopeful it's somewhere out east.
Buffalo, yeah.
Yeah. But you wonder if maybe they're tempted to send them to Oklahoma City for bracket balance. I don't know. Purdue strikes me as a team farther east than west. So maybe if you're trying to reward Purdue, you send them out east, which plays into Nebraska's favor. But I think Oklahoma City is the most likely scenario. I think the NCAA, for all the thoughts of merit and all their, they would say on the record, they want to reward the best teams. But I'm sure secondarily, there's the thought of, if we send them to Oklahoma City, all those tickets are gone. And I don't know what the ticket situation is down there, if the regionals all sold out or anything like that. But it's in the NCAA's economic interest to send Nebraska to Oklahoma City. You get the good story, you get the good pictures on television of all the people in red crying, dropping to their knees in gratitude that Nebraska has finally gotten off the schneid and finally gotten their first NCAA tournament win. So, yeah, I would say Oklahoma City is the most likely scenario, but I'm also pessimistic enough, again, considering the bumpy finish and sort of here's the other thing that we are maybe forgetting. Nebraska is not a brand name here.
Right.
And while, again, the NCAA would tell you till they're blue in the face, they reward the best teams. They put the best teams where they ought to be. The fact of the matter is brand names get rewarded. And so Nebraska being a team that doesn't have the history, being a team that did not finish the year great, that's going to be looked at with some skepticism. And so you wonder if they would be inclined to quote unquote reward Nebraska with a trip to Oklahoma City. I don't know. I hope they overlook it. I hope they go, you know what? This Nebraska team deserves to go to Oklahoma City. They've had a great regular season. We're looking at them blind. And as it turns out, they deserve that nod. But I'm also cynical enough about what the NCAA does, especially in the men's bracket, to go to not bank on it, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Yeah. Wait, you're saying Nebraska is not a brand name? I've watched all these Big Ten games against the brand name teams. I wouldn't have noticed.
Yeah.
The way the refereeing is occurring.
Oh boy.
So looking at Nebraska's resume and just going through, there are 7 key ranking groups. The way that the committee is going to look at this. There's KPI, strength of record, wins above bubble. And then those are more of the resume metrics. And then you've also got the predictive metrics, the efficiency quality metrics, the BPI from ESPN, Ken Palm, Bart Torvik, and then the net ranking that the NCAA puts out. Nebraska ranks, if you average the resume rankings, that's better for them. They're 12th on average. In terms of the quality or efficiency, that's 17th on average. And then the net ranking is 12. So they're right there where they need to be in most of these in terms of that 3 line, 9 through 12. Yes. And to be honest, the one that stands above that the committee chair actually spoke the most about when they ranked those top 16 teams a couple weeks ago, or more than a few weeks ago, was wins above bubble in particular. And Nebraska does favorably compare. They're 9th in wins above bubble. They're above Purdue. They're even above Illinois in wins above bubble, to be honest. So that's one of them. Look across the resume. Yeah, you can say, okay, this team did better than this team on this or that. The committee already told you what they're looking at.
Yeah.
And Nebraska compares well. And so there's very, very strong reason to believe that they're not going to get dropped that much. That's been another hallmark of the committee over the years. The conference tournaments, unless you're a bubble team having to win it, it doesn't really impact your resume that much.
Right.
Unless you stack up like 2 or 3 major wins and you're on the bubble. So there's I don't think that much reason for hesitancy in terms of their situation. So that's a look at where Nebraska stands right now in terms of their seeding, their destination. I'm not a travel agent. I'm not advising you. Do not come back and tell me, hey, Cole said. No,
Cole said Nebraska's absolutely, totally, completely, utterly going to Oklahoma City. And if they don't, he will pay for your travel elsewhere. You heard it here first on the KLIN Husker Hour.
This is not.
Congratulations.
This is not legally binding. I'm just going to put that out there right now. But hey, if you get down there, I'll see you in OKC.
There you go.
Making that trip. All right, we're going to have Matt McMaster joining us right after this. He is live in Chicago. We'll get an update from Matt from his perspective on how Nebraska acquitted themselves yesterday, what it looked like in the aftermath of that, where he thinks their head might be at, just based on body. And we're gonna go there and see what he thinks. And we'll also pivot to football as well. We'll get a little bit of a spring update as the players and coaches, they get a little spring break here coming up for a week, and then they'll be into game week after that. So all of that is coming up. Matt McMaster right after this on the KLIN Husker Hour.
safe. They Huskers and those that cover the Big Red. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
Rolling along here on your Saturday morning, the day before Selection Sunday, and Nebraska already crashed out in Chicago, but we've got a good friend out there who never crashes out in Chicago. He's a man of the people out there in Chi-Town. It is Matt McMaster, former co-host here on Husker Hour, good friend of the show, host of Middays with Matt on 1620 The Zone. Matt, good morning. How are we?
Morning. Crashing out. I've never crashed out in Chicago. That's how I got my job from crashing out in Chicago. I mean, that's exactly the letter of the law. So I don't know about that statement, but yes, I am boots on the ground here in my home city. Currently, funny enough, you guys got me at a good time. I'm leaving my house to go to the United Center cover day 4 of the Big Ten tournament. For Matt, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, hey,
I'm hopping in the car. How are we?
Well, yeah, you're hopping in the car. Let's take a journey through yesterday's game on Nebraska Purdue with you. You saw it in person. Obviously, Nebraska doesn't match up super great with Purdue, and it was a terrible start at PBA before they had the crazy comeback and forced overtime, and it was a terrible start again yesterday. What did you think it was? Was it offensive, defensive? Were they in their heads? Were they trying too hard? Give me your thoughts on your perspective.
It's a great question. I think number one, Purdue's defense was noticeable. You know, it was just noticeable how much easier it was, especially from the perimeter on the inside, for Purdue to get to the paint, and it was really hard for Nebraska to get to the paint on the offensive end. You know, obviously when you got Trickoff and Ren, you got Oscar Clough in the paint, it's always going to be tough making baskets in there, but I really do think the perimeter defense of Purdue was impressive. Thought that Warrior played good D, thought Braden Smith played some really good D. So that was what stood out to me, but it's interesting, guys, like despite that and the bad start, the rebounding was basically the same with about 11 minutes to go in the second half. I mean, they were basically, I think it was like 23-23. And then Sam hits that three, cuts it to 8. And, I was in the locker room after the game and I asked Sam, like, you cut it to 8, you hit that three, after the slow start, what are you thinking? And he was like, look, there's definitely a belief there at that point, that we can go ahead and win this game. But then that sequence, right, of Smith gets switched on to Garcia. He draws the foul, hits the 2 free throws. It goes up 10. Offense on the other side. Garcia takes a 3, misses it, rebound. You go to the other, Purdue comes back down the court. They miss a shot, goes through Garcia's hands, ends up in Purdue's hands, and then they hit that 3, and then all of a sudden an 8-point deficit becomes a 13-point deficit. And I think that swing kind of sealed the game there. And, talking to the guys after the game, obviously there was some disappointment among the teams about the rebounding, but the number one thing was Purdue capitalized on it. I think that it wasn't so much about the rebounding numbers from a raw perspective as much as it was when they got the rebounds, they hit their shots. And, Purdue was just on it yesterday. I mean, they just played really well. And, I taken that video of Jamarcus Lawrence, high-fiving everybody going back into the locker room. I mean, he was verbally saying all these guys, hey, they were hot, and so I don't think these guys think any less of who they are, their team, or their chances heading into the big dance, because of yesterday's game. And I think that's the really important part of this whole thing.
Seems like those teams run into a bump in the road, though. They start 20-0 and nobody, holds against them the loss at Michigan, right? I mean, they were battling the flu bug, but it was a close game. But it felt like since then things have been really difficult for this team. How do you attribute that? How do you figure that?
I think bump in the road is relative.
Sure.
I think that you look at 2 of these games. I think I look at 3 of these games and say, all right, they got beat. Like, I think they just got beat yesterday. I think they got beat against Illinois, and I think they got beat against UCLA. But then lost. I think the other 3, right, Michigan, the first Iowa game, and then the first Purdue game, you look back and you go, a couple bounces of the ball or sicknesses or illnesses that don't happen or injuries that don't happen, they could easily end up being 29-3. So, I just think what's really happened is that they've played some really, really high caliber teams, and they've come out short on the other side. And, they came up short in the first go round against Purdue and Iowa. But I will say this, Illinois and Purdue, those 2 teams specifically, the Illini and the Boilermakers, those are the 2 types of teams that are made to build. They're made to beat Nebraska. Like, when you can overwhelm Nebraska with size, and I've always said this, it's not. I don't get worried about Nebraska when they're playing up against one big man. I get really worried when they play against 2 big guys. Like, that's when crap really hits the fan. And Illinois, has a lot of. They got 3 of those dudes who are like 7-footers, and then Purdue's got Kaufman-Wren. And I'll say this in terms of how aggressive Nebraska can be in the pick and roll. There's really one point guard in the country who salivates at that opportunity to split double teams with his passes, and that's Braden Smith. And Purdue and Matt Painter, I mean, talking to Jamarcus after the game yesterday, he goes, they're really the only team that runs sets against them. Like, they're the only team who could really run sets against us. They did it. They were pinging the ball around, and, they hit their shots. They got off the start hot, and they kind of stayed that way. And I don't know what the final number was, but it seems like they were shooting 50% for basically the entire game. So, bump in the road, but I think it has a little bit to do with matchups. And, they've come out short on some close games. And earlier in the year, they were coming up big in close games. They beat Illinois in a close game, Ohio State in a close game, Michigan State in a close game. So, I think the competition's gone up and things have kind of flipped a little bit, but I still think this is a real, and I'm not saying, Nate, that you're not saying they're a good team, but
right.
I'm not overly concerned to where my expectations are heading into the tournament.
Yeah, and lest we forget, like, the reason that these teams like Purdue and Illinois are bad matchups for Nebraska are the reasons that other teams that Nebraska is going to see on the 14 line, those teams are not going to be put together like those Illinois or Purdue teams. They're not going to have the coaching, the just the raw talent. That it'll be a completely different deal. Lest we forget. as we've got Matt McMaster live from Chicago, who was in the building yesterday for Nebraska Purdue, and in the locker room after the game. I know you mentioned. So tell me and tell our listeners, Matt, what the mentality is like right now as Nebraska's wrapped up the regular season. Big Ten tournament's done. Now it's one thing, one singular focus. It's an unspoken thing, but everybody knows exactly what it is. Where do you think this team's mentality is looking into those guys' eyes after that game last night and knowing that that's the last thing on the menu this season?
I'll say this, like, I was in the locker room for about 30 minutes. And I think in that 30-minute span, I saw the loss get flushed. I think when you first, walked in there, they were mad. Like, they were not happy. Price wasn't happy. Sam was not happy. Kale was kind of ticked off. Jamarcus was a little, he was kind of away from everybody else, and I think that was on purpose, And those first 15 minutes when all the media is in there and the TVs are in there and the cameras are in there and the microphones are in there, they were showing their frustration. But then kind of everybody left, and I was one of the last people in there. Yeah. And I know some of these guys because I went to school with them, and at the same time, and so you're talking things out, and I just think as you hit minute 20 and then 25 and then 30, I kind of saw, especially Kale and Sam, kind of be like, all right, this sucked. Like, we wish we won. Obviously, there's things we got to clean up. We could have played better, but we know what the prize is. We know what the big game is. We know what we really set out to do this season, and that's to win games, not just a game, win games in the NCAA tournament. So you go in there. Initially, in minute one, I think that the emotion was raw, and they were very unhappy with their performance, and obviously they hate losing. But then I think as that time kind of progressed in the locker room, you visibly saw them, their attitude and their mindset started to shift to who they're going to play in a 3-14 game or maybe even a 4-13 game. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
Matt, let's switch gears for just a moment and talk spring football. Of course, it's been overshadowed by Nebraska men's basketball, and that in and of itself might be good for this program. What's just stood out to you as you've been able to take in spring football and the reaction to it?
A lot of Quasi Gilmer talk, a lot of Quasi Gilmer talk, which is good. Sometimes I think we fall in love with guys who haven't made mistakes in red yet. I think we go ahead and we start saying a lot of things because we haven't seen a guy make a Saturday mistake. But I think there's been enough people that I trust in the media and whatnot who know what they're looking at, who really like what they're seeing from him. So that's real to me. I think in terms of all of the hyping guys up, I think the Quasi Gilmer hype is there. I think it's legit. I think for me, my kind of theme of the spring is just how similar it seemed to 2023. There's just, you kind of start piecing things together. There's a lot of this roster and a lot of this, honestly, staff and how they're kind of communicating that lines up to what it was like in their first year here. You have a transfer quarterback who had turnover problems in the ACC, who's a dual threat guy, who they're loving his dual threat ability. You have a running back by committee where it's very much a competition. You're trying to figure out who's going to be what. And then you have a defensive coordinator who has his system. It's nobody's system other than Rob Orch's system. And, I'm hearing this Jameer Khan talk of he's a guy who's emerging in camp and a guy that Rob Orch has taken to and likes his skill set for how he fits into the 4-2-5. Guys, it reminds me of a guy, Omar Brown, safety out of Northern Iowa, who came to Nebraska in 2022, didn't do anything. And then in 2023, when Tony White came with the 3-3-5 to Lincoln, Omar was a guy who was playing some really, really big, making big plays for him and playing some big minutes for him. And I think he had over 50 tackles that season. So I think there's a lot of similarities from Matt Rule's first go around here to where they're at now. And that interests me because I think that kind of communicates that I think this is more in tow on how they want to build and operate the program for maybe where they were at the last two seasons. I think I think this is more in tune to what the vision was when they first got here, compared to where they've been in 2024 and 2025.
Matt, we'll get you out of here on this 30 seconds or less. The line has come out in some places for Nebraska, 5.5 wins.
Over.
What
Over.
What does it make you think though when you see that line, the perception of where this program's at?
I think my perception is just that people immediately go better team, better team, better team, better team, worst team, worst team, worst team. They do the math and then they make the line. You know, I don't really fall in love with that stuff. I don't freak out about that stuff. Yeah, Washington and Iowa are projected to be better teams than Nebraska. Does that mean that's going to happen next year? No. Same thing with Illinois. Like, I mean, those teams could have bad years. Nebraska could have a bad year. Nebraska could also have a good year. Things develop as time goes on, and so I don't freak out. I think for me, it's obviously Washington, Iowa, Illinois. They deserve the respect to be looked at as better programs, better teams than Nebraska. But we'll see as spring goes on and fall ball goes on. Teams get better. Teams have injuries. So I'm not. I know it's shocking. The betting guy isn't paying attention to the line, but I'm not freaking out about it.
All right. Well, hey, I was giving travel advice earlier. I was just telling people to book their Oklahoma City travel. You're just telling people to put hard money down on over 5.5. That's fine. Come here for advice.
I'm not freaking out about it. I'm not giving out advice. But my first initial jerk was to, all right, I would bet the over. But if it was 6.5, I think there would be a different combo. But no, I'm not overreacting just yet. Just yet. You wait. I'll overreact at some point.
There you go. Famously, Matt McMaster never overreacts on the radio. It's
absolutely
good stuff as always. We appreciate you out in your hometown of Chicago. Safe travels back, and we'll get you back here on Husker Hour again soon. All right.
Thanks, Duke. Thanks, Nate. Appreciate you, boys. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us.
All right, there he goes, Matt McMaster. Good stuff as always. And look, the way this team, I will take the stance that it is an indictment of Matt Rule's program in year 4 that this is where Vegas is setting the line. I know they're not necessarily out to be right. They're out to make money off of this thing. Okay, how are we going to make the most money? We're going to set it at 5.5 because we think this, we think that. But boy, in year 4, I know the schedule is the schedule. You got 3 playoff teams on there, but to have your line set at 5.5, that does speak to where things are at. So it is make or break may not exactly be hard enough for me to see what the public perception is. Doesn't mean anything,
right?
Obviously, you have to go out and do it, but man, I think it is a little bit of an indictment on the program. In my opinion, we'll get to a little bit more football. We'll reset where Husker women's situation's at before their selection Sunday tomorrow as well. And then we'll hit the diamond. Good things happening on the diamond. We got win streaks. We got top 5 teams. We got newcomers from Bellevue West stepping up. What?
How about that?
Let's hear some more about the Bellevue West guys, huh? Let's come back and hit all that and more with Husker Hour coming on right after this.
Your Saturday morning source for everything Huskers is right here. You're listening to the KLIN Husker Hour on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
Big thanks to Matt McMaster. Just joined us on the phone from Chicago. If you missed Matt or any of the rest of our show, make sure you check out KLIN.com, the podcast page. You can get subscribed at Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search KLIN Husker Hour. All right, we've talked a lot about where the men sit as Selection Sunday is tomorrow, Nate. The women, it's not as rosy a picture. I think pretty much the consensus is Huskers might find themselves on the wrong side of the bubble. This one is not so much a total resume look as it is what the team is trending like. And unfortunately for Nebraska, they started hot. Remember, Nebraska men and women both started, with long win streaks to start the year, but really going down the stretch, Nebraska had the win over Washington at the buzzer almost with the Britt Prince step back three. But you go back before that, they had that 6-game losing streak. They haven't beaten a good team since January, and that really might hurt them. They might find themselves on the outside looking in tomorrow. Yeah,
it's going to be a nerve-wracking selection show for the women. I've seen projections where they are essentially the last team in. The one thing that's fueling my optimism for them is that it's felt like even since they lost in the Big Ten tournament, it felt like the projection moved to last team in a lot of places, and it hasn't moved since. Most conference tournaments, if not all of them, for the women wrapped up last week. So there isn't more evidence that'll really jar them from that. But they're going to have to play a first 4 game. I think that's almost a certainty at this point. If they make the NCAA tournament, they're going to play a first 4 game. And, that's a little disappointing considering, as you mentioned, they got off to that great start and then they just never seemingly got it back on track.
Yeah. At this point, I think they'd be pretty happy with it because probably thinking you're dead. And then you come back to life like that with the announcement tomorrow, hopefully that they hear that they are at least in the field and have a chance to keep playing. So we shall see. The selection shows for both the men and women are tomorrow. As for the Diamond, we'll hit baseball real quick, and then we'll flip over to softball in our last segment. Now, through the quad into the gymnasium, they had an undefeated undefeated week last week to open Haymarket Park. They went 5-0, especially nice win over Michigan State on the Friday that we talked about last week. And then yesterday started off with the series with Maine, and it looked dicey late. You gave up a couple runs in the 9th, but then you end up coming back and tying it on Devin Nunez's 2 RBI single. And then a true freshman from Bellevue West, Drew Grego, ends up getting the game-winning hit, and Nebraska wins 6-5. So 7-game win streak for Nebraska, and 2 more games left on this 9-game homestand. They have a chance to finish it off unbeaten.
Last night, I think, would have been devastating, but it just goes to show how weird the game can be, and especially non-conference games, Friday nights. Maine came in, and hearing the boys call it last night, it sounded like the Black Bears burned a lot of emotion. So I'm going to be interested to see how Maine responds after losing last night, because if they're still dragging after losing last night, the Huskers should have a fairly easy time of it today. But, if not, we saw what can happen, and Nebraska was fortunate to turn it on in the 9th inning and find a way to win that game.
Yeah, still have some bullpen issues to work out, I think it's fair to say, for Rob Childress and his staff. But go back to the midweek. Very good to see Cooper Katsky continuing to deal 8 more strikeouts in 5 innings in the win over North Dakota State. So nice work from him as the essentially 4th starter for this bunch as they continue on with the main series this weekend. You'll see a doubleheader today, and then that'll be the weekend, and then they're back on the road after that. When we come back, we'll get to softball, top 5 softball. Woo! They are rolling right now, too. We'll get Nate's report as the play-by-play voice of Husker softball, and we'll get you ready for the weekend. It's all coming up here on the KLIN Husker Hour.
You're listening giving you an inside look at everything Huskers. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on 1499.3 KLIN.
All right, swinging it around the diamond. We talk baseball. Let's talk softball. Softball is rolling, folks. Big win over Michigan yesterday. Top 5 in the country. Nate, they're set. This is exactly what you wanted for Jordy Fromm's senior year.
Well, they were second in the RPI coming into the series this week, which tells you that the gauntlet that Rhonda Revelle set up for her team in the non-conference, they were able to successfully navigate it and do as much as they needed to do with that to position themselves well to host not just a regional, but a super regional. That was the entire mission of the non-conference schedule. I think it's safe to say at this point, mission accomplished. And they did it without having to throw Jordy Fromm every inning. They've done it with Alexis Jensen emerging and even getting some good innings out of Hannah Kammensen.
Yeah, they've gotten a lot of depth. I think it's pretty clear to see just how strong this roster is from top to bottom. You're going to have a doubleheader today for them as well. Michigan is in town, so a busy time over at the Haymarket Park complex with Hawks Field and Bowling Stadium. And then they're back on the road next weekend as well. So, all right, call your shot. Nebraska 3 seed, Oklahoma City?
I'll say yes. You talked me into it.
All right, and we both said last week where we thought they were going tournament-wise. I don't think we're going to change those opinions yet. But hey, this time next week, we will know. We'll see you all on the other side. Go Big Red.